Hello everybody, how are you doing? And welcome to a brand new video. When you're seeing this, I am probably still on my hiatus, I'm pretty sure. I'm pre-filming this because what I just did today, which is why my desk looks the way it does and I look all fancy and dressed up, is because I just filmed my newest Skillshare class. And when you are seeing this video, it has just gotten released. I have already multiple Skillshare classes out, a beginner's guide on poetry, about how to keep writing within a crisis, how to create blackout poetry, and a beginner's guide on how to be an environmentalist. And my newest class, which I've just filmed, I've literally just hit the button for the last clip of that class, is all about nature writing. I am super excited for this class. I'm very proud of it. I'm in love with the whole topic and it's just something that I'm very, very passionate about. So if you have a Skillshare account, I will leave a link down below that you can check out. Even if you don't have a Skillshare account but you're interested, please feel free to use the link down below. And yeah, feel free to check out any of my classes, specifically the newest one, if you're interested in those topics. If you are one of my highest tier Patreons, you also have for free access to that Skillshare class without having to make a Skillshare account. So if you're not that eager into, making a Skillshare account, paying for a subscription on Skillshare, but you still want to check out my class and support my work, feel free to become one of my patrons. They have free access. And in honor of the release of this new Skillshare class, I wanted to talk about my favorite nature writing books out there. If you didn't know, nature writing is the art of incorporating the love and observation of nature into your writing. It is not limited to a genre. It can happen in fantasy, it can happen in poetry, nonfiction, specifically memoirs, like hiking memoirs are a very big deal. It can even happen in romance books or any other type of fiction. To be honest, my list of fictional poetic type of nature writing is quite limited. I mean, my own poetry collections are nature writing, at least TheAnatomyofWaves and The Eloquence of Hurricanes. Both of them are definitely in the nature writing category. But a lot of what I read when it comes to nature writing is nonfiction, but I'm not only going to talk about this because this video is supposed to be short and sweet. Editing Tasmin here. I forgot to mention, if you want to challenge yourself and you want to read more about nature, or you are already very passionate about nature writing, doesn't matter the genre, does not need to be nonfiction, can be any genre. You can join the Climathon, which is a year-long readathon I'm hosting together with my friend Anya from Well Traveled Books. And the bingo board is completely optional. It's just some inspiration for you to, pick up some different books. And I will leave the link, the announcement video down below. So yeah, we would love for you to join if you like nature writing or want to explore more about nature writing. So what I'm going to do is, for each genre, I have one book that I have read and that I would recommend, and one book that is still on my TBR and that I'm very excited for. First up is a hiking memoir or a nature memoir. And we have the book that I've already read, which is Wild by Cheryl Strayed, which is probably the most popular book in this whole genre. And I read it last year and I did enjoy it. I was a little bit disappointed because the hype was just so huge and it didn't live up to the hype for me personally. And I felt like there was a little bit of a connection missing to what that trip actually did for her long term. But it is still a wonderful piece of nature writing. And the book in the same genre that I still would like to read is The Salt Path by Raynor Winn. I have started this on audiobook a few months ago and then I had to put it down because it talks a lot about your partner getting diagnosed with, in this case, I think if I remember correctly, a terminal illness, and your partner being like very, very sick and everything being very uncertain. And like, there's also like, they had a farm and that farm is being taken away from them. And like, I just listened to like the first 5 minutes and I was immediately crying. So I had to put it down because it just hit a bit too close to home for me personally. But I'm still very eager to get into it as soon as my mental health is very stable and, you know, like my circumstances have changed a little bit. Then I'm so ready to dive into this book. I've heard nothing but amazing things about it. In the category of fiction, we have The Overstory by Richard Powers, which is another book I read last year, which made it to my top books of the year. I think while the book isn't perfect by any means, it is such a homage, such a love letter to trees and forests and the natural world. And it's so beautifully written. My God, this book, it's really staying with me. It's so beautiful. Like, if you have any space in your heart for a tree to grow, that book is for you. And the book I still want to read that actually also talks about trees is The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that last name. I have heard so much about the author. She's very popular in Germany, and I used to own, I forgot the name of the book, something with an architect. I'm very sorry. I used to own that one, but because I'm just not that much of a literary fiction person, I at some point just unhauled it because I was like, I'm never going to read this. Like, it's very thick and it's literary fiction. So am I really going to read it? Probably not. But this book, what I've heard about it and the fact that it's written from the perspective of a fig tree, sign me up. I'm here. Yes, please. Thank you. Then we have poetry, and the one that I have read was really hard for me to find in English because I've read it in German and it is a German poet, and translating poetry is really difficult, which is, by the way, why my poetry only exists in English. Like, so many people ask me all the time, why don't I publish my poetry in German? And the reason is I write it in English and I just cannot translate it. It's so difficult to translate poetry. So yeah, this might not be as accessible to you, but Josef von Eichendorff is a poet that lived a while ago. Like, he's not alive anymore, and he was very active during like the time, I actually don't know how you would call that in English, but in German, during the Romantic period, which would translate to romance period. Like, my school education is coming back, but again, he is the master of nature writing. His poetry is all about nature. Everything that this poet did in his life was just being outside, going on walks, observing nature, and writing absolutely stunning, beautiful poetry about it. And one poet that I would really, really love to check out is Mary Oliver. I've heard so many amazing things about this poet, and I'm so excited to one day read her work. Then we have nonfiction, which is my favorite genre, and it was really, really, really hard for me to decide both on the book that I have read and the book that I want to read. Again, I'm hosting the Climathon, and if you've seen my TBR, you know that my entire TBR consists of nature nonfiction, and you don't even know how many more books in this category I would love to read. The list is endless, and I have read a lot already. But I think the book that stands out the most, because it's one of my favorite books of all time, period, all genres included, is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I love her so much. Oh my God. This book changed my life. It changed my life. It's so good. And my TBR book for this genre is a little bit of a cheat because it is by Peter Wohlleben. If you didn't know, also one of my favorite nature nonfictions is The Hidden Life of Trees. Also changed my life. And I would like to read The Heartbeat of Trees by Peter Wohlleben, which is probably very similar to The Hidden Life of Trees, let's be honest, but I'm so ready for it. And also look at this cover that I found. I need to have this edition, even though he's a German author and writes in German, and the English one is just the translation, but this cover, because I hate the German covers, but yes, thanks, okay, sign me up, bye. Then we have fantasy and sci-fi, the book that I have read. I've read a few of those last year. If you watched my best books of the year, you've seen these books. And I really want to dive deeper into like nature fantasy because I feel like I found my sweet spot. I feel like I found like the thing that I love the most. But the book that I'm going to mention is The Jasmine Throne, which doesn't have nature as the main focus of the book, but there is a sentient forest in there, and a lot of the magic really interacts with the environment and the nature around the characters. And a book that I would like to read in this nature, fantasy, sci-fi situation is Cage of Souls by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I actually have forgotten what this book is about. I just know it's set in a jungle. And I think it's more sci-fi than fantasy. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. But yeah, like look at the cover alone. It's been on my TBR for a while and I would like to get to it eventually. Then we have romance, which is a wild category for me to include because I barely read any romance. However, last year I read Something Wild and Wonderful by Anita Kelly. I love their books so much. And this one is a male-to-male romance between two young men who are both processing something big in their life, and they're going on this huge hike across the Pacific coast of the US, and they meet each other on the hike, and you know, romance blossoms between the two, and it's so lovely and it's highly underrated. I've never seen anybody else talk about it, so I highly recommend that one. For my TBR, I have nothing because again, I'm not a big romance reader. I need my romances to be like deep and meaningful and to not only focus on the relationship, but also on other deeper topics. And I just couldn't find one that, you know, also incorporated nature as a big factor. So if you have any recommendations for me about a romance book set in nature or with a heavy focus on nature that is not just about two people seeing each other, falling in love and wanting to bang, sign me up, leave it in the comments down below. I would love to know. If you have any other recommendations also for the genres I didn't mention because I don't really read them very much, like for example horror, thriller, that kind of stuff, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below and let me just know, what is your favorite nature writing? And if you want, check out my Skillshare class. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day and see you at some point whenever I come back from my hiatus. If by any chance, I already know I will put it on the screen, but probably not, so see you when I see you.